I feel, as a lot of us know, SC role have now transformed to become a forward deployed engineering role, which is a very, I want to say, thin line to walk to, because I see a lot of people who have very core SDE software development experience diving into forward deployment engineering roles. And I see a lot of SCs being forward deployment engineers as well. And the beauty of that title is that you never know. I've spoken to so many FDE roles, and you never know, even looking at the JD before you talk to the hiring manager. Sometimes the recruiter cannot even differentiate that the role requires real production code experience, or you just need to know how to use Cloud Code and Cursor. So that's definitely changed. I see a lot of FDE roles popping up ever since Palantir introduced this role. They probably introduced it for a different realm of reasons, but the way it's been popping up at every startup and every company that I see is pretty insane. Second thing that I see, that I spoke to my mentor about actually the other day, is that a lot of solution engineers like SCs who've been doing what they're doing for 10 plus years, right? Mid senior to senior SCs are actually navigating to become account executives, right? So technical SDEs are moving towards a FDE role, and SCs who were very pre-sales or very post-sales focused are actually becoming account executives. And I think that's a very cool change because technology is becoming very accessible. Hence, everyone is moving up the ladder. They're moving up the ladder in a very fast and systematic way without any education, without any support. Traditionally, you needed a degree, you needed an MBA to do these things. But lately, it's very cool that everything is DIY. It's also scary at the same time. I feel like I'm going to be out of a job very soon. Something that has stayed the same is I feel like the core part of business. I think I don't see it changing in the next 10 plus years or more is discovery. Account executives are doing an extremely good job at discovery, not just business discovery, but technical discovery as well. That is, I feel, the effect of SCs moving into account executives role and account executives moving back and doing the discovery as early as possible. I see new tools popping up in the market, demo automation tools very similar to Navattic or GTM tools that help you, that I don't want to say help you to discovery, but enable you to do better discovery or enable the customer to be open to a better or open to a broader discovery. I feel like the quota that when you become an account executive becomes a very big part of your job, and also what your job is dependent on. In terms of NSSC, I've had a quota, but my quota was related to how many POCs I closed successfully. And like sales, being an account executive is a very tough job because sometimes it's not about your skills, it's just about the market, it's just about how things are. And there's a lot of luck factor enrolled there. I will say that yes, POCs, a successful POC may not translate to a deal being signed. But if I, as an SC, do a great job in doing a successful POC, and the POC ends up like, we like the POC, we want to move forward, I get my money, right? So no matter we close an enterprise deal or not, like pre-sales quotas are much more effort and skill focused than account executive quota. And I have no idea how they do their jobs and stay sane at the end of the quarter. It's just insane to me. With Cursor, with Cloud Code, and other billion tools, and so many MCPs that you can pretty much plug and play, which was not the case. Even with API integration, it's never been plug and play. It is becoming very accessible to build your own thing, which is an exciting time. Honestly, as someone who has not written production code in such a long while, there's such a thrill in creating something by yourself, figuring out every little detail. It is a very DIY focused time. And as someone who likes to explore new tools and loves DIY, this is a great time to be anyone in the market who has access to these tools. And I'm grateful that I've worked at companies and I continue to work at companies which actually give you a free range with these tools. These licenses are expensive. Right? So it is becoming very easier to try out new tools and build things by yourself. But I would always This is one of the questions that I would ask any vendor that I'm talking to, and all vendors ask me: build versus buy. Anyone can essentially, if you have a decent engineering degree or specific knowledge, you can build a platform connecting a bunch of MCPs over a weekend. And this is not an exaggeration. What you cannot build is that layer of added security. What you cannot build is the layer of added conflict resolution. What you cannot build is the architecture that goes on top of it. Because when you are taking data from multiple MCPs, you need to be you need to ensure a couple of things. You need to ensure that the data is correct and refreshed accordingly, because then you'll be taking decisions on stale data, which nobody talks about when you're building these things. Second, you need to make sure that MCPs are a very powerful tool, right? Slack has an MCP. So you need to be very careful. Is the Slack MCP pulling up information or conversations with your manager, with your HR, talking about PII information, talking about salaries? Between me and my CRO, we would have our most confidential information conversations in Slack. We consider it like a messenger, right? If Slack has an MCP, is it pulling that information in? What is it going to do when it has conflicting information between two or more sources? Which one is the source of truth? I don't want to plug in softwares here, but major softwares like Lean and other things that are in the market that help you search things, they have a very hard coded architecture. By that, Lean essentially works on the frequency of how a data source was accessed and what is the freshness, like when was the data source completed or sorry, updated, right? So you need to understand these things when you are building and buying, right? So I would always, now I'm auditing every new tool that I see, and everyone is auditing me from the build versus buy sense. And as an SC, my job is to my job is not to tell you, you cannot build this by yourself. Of course, you can build it by yourself. But can you build all the other layers of data security, conflict resolution, architecture, decision making on top of it? Probably not, right? So that's my general idea around it. I feel like in the SaaS world, in the cloud world, you always had to do the enablement and change management whenever you bring in a new software, figure out how to use it, go through multiple trainings. Now the narrative is completely changed. There is no solution that requires change management. The solution does the change management and adoption for you. It adopts to your organization, it adopts to your methods, right? So that is also a big factor when you're selling these solutions, that honestly, everyone has it at this point, but it's about how you position it. This is going to sound very depressing, and this is my hot take. Okay. I feel that demos are dead. Okay. As someone who has sat through 6 hours of formal evaluation, giving multiple demos to multiple stakeholders, and this being my whole job, and competing with other vendors showing similar demos, demoing is actually dead. It is sad, but it's actually really true, because earlier my whole job was supposed to be understand pain points or and connect them to my features and show those top 3 features or values in a very concise way. Like my job was to show what the client wants or show my top 3 or top 4 things that I think would be a great fit in the most concise way possible. There have been times when I've spoken to my seniors very early career when they're like, "You're using too many words, Muskan. You gotta use less words to say the same thing. Oh, Muskan, you're doing actually too many clicks. See if you can do the same thing in less number of clicks. Or Muskan, you're moving your screen very fast and I cannot really see what you're doing. Can you move it slow? Or this color really hurts my eyes. Can we adjust it, or can we increase the size of the text? This example that you've pulled up is actually really complicated and I can't really understand it in one glimpse. Can you make it easier for me as an audience so I understand it in the first 10 seconds or 30 seconds I look at it? And that was my whole job. It was a fun job, but it's no longer exists because tools like Navattic and demo automation have taken over and they do such a good job. It is very easy at this point to, if you know the 4 things you want to show them in the most concise way possible. It's easy. And honestly, I used to record Loom videos and send it to my clients, 30-second Loom videos. I don't do that anymore because nobody wants to sit through me talking. As depressing as it sounds, nobody wants to do that. I just send like a 3 or 4 click Navattic or like click through video or demo, and that's it. No, people would look at it and decide whether they want to talk to me or not. So that is already there, and I feel that's only going to increase. Anyone who's doing a formal evaluation right now has already changed their process, and it's going to continue to be that way. I feel like it's changing towards being less of a demo person and more of the person who goes before and after the demo. Someone who makes sure that the demo the customer sees is successful and connects it to the value. I was also actually talking to Meredith about like agents being like mini demo engineers. I'll speak about it more maybe in the next following conversations, but that role in terms of like how SE role is changing, that role has also popped up. You would see that Notion, one of Navattic customers, has it, and other couple of companies have a role called demo engineer, which is a very interesting role. It's between GTM marketing and solution consulting. I feel that was like one of my KPIs when I first started out as an SE. And it's crazy to see if that is someone's year the round all day job. A part of me, when I first honestly saw MCPs, I thought that it is just like a fancy UI, a UI wearing a Patagonia jacket. But as like I'm introduced more to it, I'm understanding it's way more because like it's way more. It depends upon how you're using it, and same goes for agents. You can use an agent in a really stupid way and it won't benefit you at all, but you could really use it in a smart way. Something that I like, I'm actually getting introduced to and I'm working on myself to create this with Navattic agents is the almost like a mini demo engineer. So the whole job of a demo engineer is that, hey, this new product feature came out. Let me see what use cases I can build around it for my top customers so that I can introduce it to them. Not in, hey, this is a new feature, this does, this clicks this and this happens. Not in that way, but in, hey, I know that you've been struggling with XYZ. One of our new features came up and I think it could really solve for you. Here's how I think you could use it. Here's a 3-click demo or whatever. Here's what I can provide for you to help you with the problem, blah, 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 right? And the second thing a demo engineer or demo agent, essentially person or agent does is breaking into new industries. So if I've only sold ever into fintechs and banks and I now want to sell to a neighboring insurance industry, which seems pretty easy, but it's very tough to break into a new industry when you have no clients. So marketing people in with the help of SCs like myself historically would build GTM playbooks which are which are here's a very specific use case, very specific to insurance companies that we do very well. We build a demo around it, we build a collateral. That's not a one page, that's a working demo that we send to prospects. Right. So that is the whole job of a demo engineer. And I'm trying to see how Navattic's demo agent can automate it. Because most of these documents, especially in terms of product releases and stuff, get released on Confluence or Notion. Like Navattic already MCP integrates with most of those things, right? So what I'm trying to see and build for myself and where I see the future going is agent being a demo engineer. Of course, there needs to be a real person prompting it, but it would not take as much as the time that it right now takes because of just how old school it is. It's very like pen and paper old school. You sit by yourself, you think, oh my God, this is a new feature. How do I present it to my ABC customer? What are they worried about? It's very like blackboarding kind of procedure, which is very enjoyable. As like an SC, it's very creative, but there are parts of it that can definitely be automated. So that's where I feel like Navattic's agents can help, and I'm hopefully gonna be able to build a workflow and a working example very soon. The first pushback that I see is specifically from industries like fintechs and banks and insurance companies. So these are like, think of businesses who are 100-year old. Like most of the banks are 100-year-old with 100-year-old customer. That's what it translates to, which also translates that their tech stack is 100-year-old, right? So your main job as an SE becomes not selling your product, not selling your value, but a, becoming an AI de-risking person, busting myths about AI, right? So that's the one pushback that I see so often, and that I feel is such a pleasure as an SC to bust myths around. I've had questions like, oh, will AI look at my accounting routing number and send anonymously money? What if it hallucinates and tells me the wrong information? I tell it to my CFO and boom, I'm fired. What if your a lot of email agents are popping up? What if and they're integrated to form multiple software for multiple users, right? Use cases, right? So what if your AI email agent sends spam email to my top customers, or just sends spam email in general, and it's all outbound and I cannot take care of the inbound? What do I do then? Will I have to talk to my IT person to increase my SOC compliance coverage? Is this what it means? What data is it looking at? Are you guys using my data to make your model better? And a lot of people do not know the difference between inference-based AI and generative AI. Generative AI is when the AI builds up stuff, and inference is where the AI is like, here's what I found, and this is what I can say for sure. This is where I can't. Right? So just like that is the usual AI pushback, that is very normal. When we moved from on-premise to cloud, we had it. When now we're moving from cloud to agentic, we have it. When we moved from file-based to API, we had it. Now we're moving from API to MCP, we had it. General pushback against AI, questions about security, blah, blah, blah. That is one pushback. The second pushback that I feel is more niche and is very new to this particular transition from cloud to agentic AI is hallucination. Not hallucination, actually, trust. And I say that because it has become so easy with all these AI tools to build a good demo, build a crazy good Figma tool, or build a beautiful website, a beautiful click through. It becomes very tough as a user and as someone who's selling to these people to make them trust that this is the real thing and this is not something that just exists in Figma dashboards that we have no product behind. Right? So that has become a very big deal because startups and most companies do a great job at selling materials and click-through demos and doing basic evaluation, proving value. But when it comes to actual implementation and POC, that's when you see real ball. And that I feel is very new to this particular transition because this never happened before. The thing that I see is that companies are, maybe this is also true for previous transition. Actually, no. So the third thing that I see is new to this particular transition is that companies are buying a bunch of AI tools. At this point, any company that you speak to has at least three. And that is beyond Claude. They have a global rollout of Claude. They probably are using Cursor. They have something like Glean, or I don't know, something like Unblocked or other billion tools or CodeRabbit or whatever. They're using at least 3+ tools. And that's a number that I think I saw at either Presales Collective or like one of the bigger Gartner type of organizations. Each organization at least has 3+ tools. So your main job becomes not like, hey, you should buy one more tool. This is going to help you do XYZ. Your main job has become, and it's not even like, here's how my new tool is going to work with your existing tools. The main value has become, you already have bought a bunch of different shit, okay? And I can tell that it's not working. Here's how my tool will provide your tools the context or a layer that will help you utilize all the different tools that you're buying work best. So that's what customers are actually looking for. And positioning yourself or having a product, honestly, that helps you do that is insane.